Hey, everybody out there in podcast land. Welcome back to eBay the Right Way. Today's date is October 5th, and our guests today are Tina and her husband Paul, who are going to give us a real education about Hot Wheels toy cars. One super quick announcement. The 2023 calendars are in my eBay store as of yesterday, October 4th. The link is below the podcast, so you can hop on over to my eBay store and take a look. Okay, and now for the chat with Tina and Paul.
Hello, listeners. We have Tina with us today. Tina, the queen of Hot Wheels. Or maybe she's the queen married to the king of Hot Wheels.
Queen consort. There we go.
Queen consort. Yes. Yes. Yeah, we're going to have to learn what all that stuff is now. So how are you doing this morning?
Doing okay. Awake.
Tina has been on before. So tell us where you're located.
We are in Central Ohio, 45 minutes east of the capital, Columbus.
Okay. All right. So you were answering questions on the Facebook group about Hot Wheels and then reached out to me to say, hey, let's do an episode and talk about this. So and forgive me if I say Matchbox, because I use those interchangeably.
Right.
And my only experience with those little cars, well, when I was growing up, my brother used to like to blow them up with firecrackers. And then the other experience was my son, who would play with them and then leave them on the floor. And then I would step on them in the middle of the night.
Right.
And that's kind of built a hatred for those things because, oh, that hurts.
Like the Lego experience.
Like, what did I step on? Oh gosh, this car. You know. Yeah. So maybe give us some background on how your husband became so knowledgeable about Hot Wheels.
Well, my understanding is he's always had Hot Wheels. He still has his original collection from when he was a kid. And so he played with them, he had them. And then as he got older, he found where he used to live in Indianapolis, they had a very large Hot Wheels club. So he would go to the club and he would learn more about them and he would buy them. He loved to buy them. He loved the search for it. You know, it's just one of those kind of things. But yeah, they have a very large club in Indianapolis. And so they know when things are being released and they can buy and they can sell and they can trade. And so he did that for, many, many years until we moved. And we still go back a couple of times a year for the meetings. Mm-hmm. They do 2 big meetings a year. But so, yeah, it's one of those things. He's had it since he was a kid and it just continued on. And I guess I should be grateful that it's not, full-size cars, but in some
That's true.
But sometimes some of these cars cost as much as a cheap beat up, drivable car.
I was just going to say that. Yeah. Now, can we know the husband's name?
Paul.
Okay. And for the listeners, because you can't see anything, this is an audio. He is lurking in the background to on reserve if we have anything that Tina can't answer, but he just felt like he wasn't a podcast person. So, which I understand. I get that all the time. I'll reach out to somebody and they're like, well, I'm kind of shy. I don't really want to do that. And that's fine. It's not for everybody, but the knowledge base is arm lengths away. So, yeah. We're going to start going through the questions that were submitted on the Facebook group so we can have our discussion and who knows what else we'll get into. So the first question is from KC Vetterly. Plastic versus metal bases. I've been told to only look for metal bases as a baseline metric, but feel there has to be plastic ones that have value. Is this a reasonable starting point when looking at loose cars?
My husband says yes, because the majority of the metal bases are more collectible. They are more desirable for the most part.
Mhm.
However, there are a few that you will get that are more desirable because they were so limited with the plastic base. Like I've got one that we just haven't we haven't put on the website yet, on eBay yet, that is a plastic base. And this car is about $150. It's a Corvette split. It's called a 63 split window Corvette from 1995.
Okay.
So yeah, and that's an extremely desirable car because there was only 10,000 of them made.
Okay.
So really it's a yes and a no question. Most of these are yes and no questions.
Okay.
It is a good starting point. Anything with a metal base and rubber wheels, which they call real riders, are a good starting base, because a lot of guys, even if the car is junk, you can use those rubber tires because they will customize other cars and they want to put the real rubber tires on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I did this out of order. I meant to ask you to talk about some of your highest sales, your highest dollar sales.
Just the other day, well, it's been a couple weeks now, we sold a 1995 VW. What's it called? It was green. It's a
The
VW.
green, yeah, that was in
VW
yesterday's
Bug.
video. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
like 300 and something dollars.
Yeah, the VW Bug. That is from 1995. And again, that's one of that same Corvette I was talking about. They're part of that same collection. That car was $350. We've sold, let's see, we sold the speed machines. They are not red lines. That's the thing. These are not red lines.
We're going to get to that in a minute, talk about that in depth, because a couple people mentioned that term. So
yeah, that we sold speed machines. They were only made in 2010. Yeah, 2010. The speed machines, and we sold one for $180. I'm trying to think. We've sold a couple of others for right in the 120, 150.
Like 150.
Yeah, 150. So those were speed machines. Again, they're more of a modern manufacturer. We have a couple of more within that 95 collection that are well, we just sold a box, actually. The gentleman that bought that $350 car, and you got to remember, the collectors are extremely picky.
Mm-hmm.
And these cars are near pristine. I mean, I have never seen such pristine 95s, but the back of these have like torpedo lights. And so when they hit the plastic, they leave a little dent.
Mm.
And he did not like that little dent. So, but he wanted 5 other of the cars that we had in that collection. So he returned that $350 car.
Oh, no.
And we took it off of that. That's that box lot you'll see of one that has $575 worth of cars in it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So were these cars made to be collectible, or did it just kind of happen like, oh, they only made this kind for a year?
Well, the 95s, these 1995s are called a treasure hunt, and they still make these treasure hunts. They're made every year. They now make them in regulars and supers. They make them now with one color. The regular is usually in one color. The super is in another color. So the 95s, yes, were originally designed more as a collectible because they were only available at JCPenney's. Yeah.
Okay.
JCPenney's. And there was only 10,000 of them sold. And you could get them in a set. They were actually
meaning 10,000, but they're all different kinds.
Yeah, there's 12 of them, but 10,000 of each.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. So you said treasure hunt. Is that an industry term, or does it say it on the package?
Well, on the older ones, you'll actually see them.
Oh, I see. Stripe. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. On the newer, some of the kind of the middle ones, you'll see a stripe on the side. Now you actually have to, you have to look for this tiny little circle. It's not on this one, but you kind of have to look for this tiny little circle with the flame on the inside under the blister, which is the bubble thing right there, or on the back or somewhere on the car. There'll be a little circle with a flame or the letters TH.
Okay, I think on this episode, we need to, instead of a photo of you, put a photo of what you keep holding up.
Sorry.
No, that's fine, because it's just the nature of audio only is you can't see it.
Yeah, this is, then if we're going to do that, the Camaro. Oh, so, okay, that's right.
You can send in whatever you think, but you're pointing out, this flame and this treasure hunt, and I think that would be helpful to have a photo of that on the thumbnail so people can see it.
Well, what we'll do is we will put the 1995 Treasure Hunt 67 Camaro on there, because this 67 Camaro is $1,500 for this one car.
It's just a little white car. It's just a little white car.
Yeah, this particular one. And if you go through the books, you'll see where there's several books you can go through. And like it was at $200 this year and it was $400 this year. Now try to find this car. You're looking at $1,250 to $1,500 for this Camaro. Yeah, upwards of $2,000. This Camaro was the one car my husband was missing from his collection. So when he bought that collection at auction for $580 for all of them, this one came right out.
Of course. Okay. And just to clarify, the photo, it'll be on the YouTube version, because the podcasting criteria for a photo is just a little like 250 by 250 square. Like you can't put anything on there that anyone will be able to see. Yeah. So when it cycles over to YouTube, we'll have that picture. So anyway.
But this one is also one of the most faked cars.
Oh, you're kidding me. Hot Wheels are faked?
This one is, yes. This Camaro, this 63 Camaro is faked because it is such a high dollar car. You can go on eBay and you will see them say, my own creation. Sometimes you'll see MOC or you will see MOMC, which is mint on mint card. But sometimes MOC is my own creation. And you will go in, or it'll say, what's another term they use? Is it custom? Yeah, they do a custom. And only a really, really good Hot Wheels person is going to notice the difference. And that's because on the bottom, and you can't see it even if I tried, but they actually have to pop out the rivets on these cars to change it. So you have to know what the rivets look like on the real one.
So you mean to tell me there's people around taking these things apart, making them fake, and
they still get like $300 for these things.
So is there no governing body, authority, authentication process for this?
As long as they say it's their own creation. Yeah. The only thing is 10 years from now, when it gets out into the mainstream or whatever, you better know what you're looking at.
And that's why we have you. So I mean, no matter what you're faking, there are always features that are very difficult to replicate. So like the imprint of the brand name on the bottom, or is there anything like that you could say, oh, here is a telltale sign of a fake Hot Wheels?
Well, you're not going to find many of them fake. That's the thing. Okay. Most of them will just say they're custom creations, but this one definitely. What were you going to say?
About the $95.
What about the box?
I'm just checking.
Go ahead.
The $95 from that set, I've seen it where people have been asking $500 just for the box itself.
That's the box that they were sold in. Yeah.
So that somebody can use it to put something in it.
Right.
Just like Nike boxes, people sell those so they can put their counterfeit Nikes and act like they're brand new and they're fake, but they're in a real Nike box.
Right. Now on the Camaro, which you were asking with the rivets on them. So when you look at the bottom, a lot of times, when you try to pop something out, you're trying to file it, so the file will slip or the grind, the bit will slip. So you may see some scratch marks around where they've tried to pop the rivet out, but you cannot get an exact rivet like these put back in. So that's the main thing, is that the rivets are definitely different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Who knew this would be so, I don't want to say complicated, but it's more information than you think. Oh, here's some Matchbox. See, I knew I would do that. Here's some Hot Wheels cars at Goodwill, new in the package.
Mm-hmm.
You get them, you take them home, you start researching. And if you don't know all these details, you just don't know.
And that's kind of goes into the next one where, and then you can ask that question, but that kind of leads in. When you're looking at them, you will see some that have blue glass windows, and you'll see some that have clear glass windows on the older ones. And the blue glass ones were made in Hong Kong, whereas the clear ones were made in the United States, and they have a different value.
So which one's worth more?
Depends on the car.
Okay, so like, does that have to do with the whole Hong Kong manufacturing ending and everything going, away from Hong Kong? Because on clothing, when it says made in Hong Kong, it's usually vintage.
It is. These are vintage.
All that stopped in 99. And things aren't made there like they used to be, the quantity of items.
Yeah, anymore, Mattel makes most of their Hot Wheels cars in Malaysia. They come across from Malaysia.
Okay.
But to give you an example, like there's one car, I'm just pulling from this book, and this is an old book. It obviously is not on eBay thing. Like if you look at Hong Kong, they can have the same coloration. Here's a car that came in magenta. If you got it from with the blue glass from Hong Kong, it's worth $425. If you got that same color with the clear glass from the United States, it's $235.
Okay.
So yeah, it's
so much to know. And I'm guessing the collectors are counting on the average Joe that finds these at garage sales and doesn't know all this information. They go on, they buy one for $20, and then they flip it for $400 because the seller didn't know there was all this detailed information.
Yeah.
Is that what y'all do?
I wish. A lot of times, I mean, we've been very fortunate a couple of times, but we've never really found anything that good at yard sales or garage sales. Most of the time we go to those and the people already know what they have.
So where do you get yours? Online auctions?
Estate auctions.
Oh, estate auctions.
Estate auctions. The last batch he bought was actually, I don't know if it was considered an estate, but it was an auction company. And a lot of times they know. And like that one, they put the good ones in with the bad ones so they could get rid of all of them.
Oh, right. Yeah. That's a common tactic. It's like, if you want this, you got to take that giant box of crap.
That's exactly
to get the one good thing inside.
Yeah, there were, what did we count, 53 or 63 cars, and out of that he wanted 12. So
well, I mean, that's just your business model, is you're willing to look through it and pick out the good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the next question from Marlene. What years are considered vintage? Does 2000 in sealed package count as vintage?
Well, it depends on if you were going to go with a dictionary definition of vintage, really. Most collectors, I think, that we deal with in the club and things like that are going to say anything prior to 99. My husband says prior to 95.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I think the standard definition came from Etsy many years ago when they say if it's 20 years old, it's vintage.
Yeah.
But every different category has a different standard on what that really means.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because in that case, I've been vintage for a very long time.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, no.
Why can't vintage mean like 60 years old or older?
Well, to me, vintage was always 50 when it comes to furniture.
Okay.
Vintage was 50 and antique was 100.
Antique is 100, yes,
Yeah.
and I see that misused as well.
Right. So that was because I grew up going to auctions, and so to me, the vintage was always 50. So I always say I am now vintage. Um,
Well, heck, my kids are vintage and they're 26 and 28. And
yeah,
it's
that's what I mean. I don't think they want to be
they're
classified as
the
vintage.
toys that they grew up with, the loveys and the stuffed
Yeah.
animals and the games and all that stuff is now considered vintage.
Yeah,
That
in his,
doesn't seem right.
yeah, in his circle, yeah, it's. I think most of them are going to probably say 95 to 99.
hmm
And in package, definitely in package is, I would say it's about 95% better. But if it's the really older, much older cars, in some cases, it really doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, and that 95 falls into what I was just saying about my grown children who were
Yeah.
born in 94 and 96.
Right.
So that seems to be a very popular time frame right now for everything that was made when these 20 somethings were little, whether it's clothing, games, stuffed animals, home decor, any of that.
Mhm.
Because now the children that were born early 90s are grown,
Mhm.
hopefully out on their own. They have jobs, disposable income, and so just for the listeners, that 90s vintage spans across many categories and products.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, I mean, in most cases for Hot Wheels, the 90s cars are, honestly.
Yeah. Okay.
80s, late 80s into the mid 90s are just, for most, is not very good. They're not very
Okay.
valuable.
Okay.
The 90 for the treasure hunt series is what makes the 95s valuable.
Okay.
And then there's a few others as they go along. The treasure hunts, none of them have the value that the 95s do. But there are others within the series, like in 1997, and maybe one in 98, maybe one in this one, that have value. But yeah, but you get anything late 80s into mid 90s. No, not really.
Not great.
No.
Okay, well, good to know. And so we're going to move on to the next question, which there was a lot of discussion about.
Mhm.
Kathy said, look for the red lines. Those are valuable even when in bad condition. And then Carol Ann said, I'd like to learn more about red lines, how to recognize them. So if you could talk about what is the red line, what are we looking for there, and any other information?
Well, the red lines were the first ones that came out for Mattel back in the 60s, 1968. Yeah, I always want to say the wrong year because his dad has a Corvette, so I say the year of the Corvette and not the, the year Hot Wheels.
Okay.
So they started in 1968 and they ran until 1977. Yeah, 1977 was the red lines, and they are exactly what she said. Is they are the tiny little cars, and if you look at their wheels or their tires, whatever you want to call them, they have a red rim, red line that goes around them.
Okay, I'm just looking that up on Google as we speak because I didn't do my homework and find out what that is. I was busy packing to move, so
I get it.
We are really winging it. But anyway, I see, yeah, in the picture, you just Google Hot Wheels red line, and the tire has a very obvious red, like where a white wall would be, but it's red.
Yep.
And this one sold for $705.
Which one is that one?
Oh wait, no, that's an active listing. It is the Hot Wheels original red line custom Barracuda light blue with white interior. Is that yours?
No.
Oh, okay.
If he had that one, he'd keep that one.
That's just the first thing that came up on Google. So,
yeah,
okay.
He has a white interior, but it's on a different vehicle.
So I was thinking, oh, is there a red line on the bottom? Is it on the package? No, it's right there on the wheel. Excellent.
Yeah, but now we get into, like I replied to her, is that you have to be very careful, because let's say you're just looking at this little car in a bag like that, and it has that little red line. Well, in the mid 90s, they made a reproduction, and on the bottom it says vintage.
Like everything else, like Lisa Frank, that was supposed to be, this great vintage stuff. No, they reintroduced it a couple years ago and made
Yeah.
it look like the original stuff. But
Yeah.
if you're a thrifter and a treasure hunter,
Mhm.
you need to know that
Yep.
what's really vintage and what's what do they call that? Like a reboot.
A retro.
Yeah, retro style. And it's like, don't
Yeah.
do that, companies. That is so unfair and confusing. Oh, we having a sidebar?
93. Okay. Yeah. I was just making sure 93, 94, because it was 25 years after the original red lines.
Okay.
So 68 would have been the first one. So they were a 25th anniversary edition is what they were supposed to be.
Okay. So does it say something on the bottom?
Vintage.
Like, okay, the ones that are not vintage say vintage.
Correct.
It's because the company realized, oh, people are into this vintage stuff. So let's make some new fake, but call it vintage because the original is not going to say vintage on it.
No, it doesn't. It
Because
just says
back in the
Hot Wheels.
day,
Yeah.
yeah, back in the 70s, they were like, let's just make some cars for kids to play with. And they had no idea what would happen. So that it's not going to say, but does it have a date on the bottom?
Well, and that's confusing too,
Oh, no.
because they can use they can have the same base, the same casting. They just change the color. So you could have a car that was produced per se that they produced originally, let's say in 1980. But then again, you're going to see it and then all of a sudden you look and see one in 1990. It still says 1980 on the bottom because they used the same casting to make it. They just may have changed the colors.
So do we need to title this podcast the most confusing podcast ever?
That's how I felt when I married him. I mean, I knew what a Hot Wheels was, but it was like,
oh, I thought you were going to say I knew what a hot guy was.
Well, that I did too. When I knew him, yes, very much so. Thank you.
Basically, it was going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, this is a mega rabbit hole, and in the scheme of it, I say I have about 2 inches worth of knowledge in comparison to his, 100 inches of knowledge.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
Well,
yeah, it is amazing because I even still say that when I go to, oh yeah, and there are national conventions and national events. So I still say that when I look around and I go, well, learned something new today. Didn't realize that. Wow, how many more things can I not know?
so instead of Dragon Con, you have Hot Wheels Con.
We have what's called the Hot Wheels Nationals, which are held in every year they change it. This year, it just happens to be up the road, 45 minutes from our house.
Oh, what a blessing.
Yeah. So we don't have to get a hotel or anything. So this year it's in Columbus, Ohio in April.
Next April.
Yeah. Next April. And then they will do a national convention, what they call the convention every year in October in California.
Okay.
Don't go to that one often. Paul's gone once. I've never gone.
So is there a good website for
Yes.
questions? Or is it Facebook groups? Because I don't want everybody emailing you.
Sorry.
You're going to set up a site that is a paid membership. I mean, I'm serious because people do that, and
Yeah, they're already there.
Specialized knowledge,
Yeah.
it's a lot to set up a website, but we don't want you
Yeah,
getting.
I have one that I just took down. So yeah, I get it.
Oh, you did. You've been there and done that.
Been there, done that. Now you got to pay for way too many things now. Sorry. no,
Right. Exactly.
No, there is a couple of good ones just for general information. There is southtexasdiecast.com. And you can do a search based on like the color, on the variation, look at the pictures. Now they do have a paid section in their website, but there's a lot that you can look at on theirs. But that is southtexasdiecast.com.
Okay.
If you want a general, there's also another one. It's hotwheels.fandom, FANDOM.com. I always say /, but is that /?
I think I see that on the Facebook group in response to Carol Ann's question. You sent her to the Hot Wheels fandom. That'll get you there.
Yeah.
To
I always call it a forwarder.
To clarify all of this red line and vintage stuff.
Yeah, that's those. There's also, even it sounds weird, but even Wikipedia has an extensive history on Hot Wheels.
Okay.
If you are more into, there's also Hot Wheel HW collectorsnews.com / what is it, wheels, and it's like abbreviations or something. Just do a search on that one, because it's like you got too many hyphens and things. So just hwcollectorsnews.com, and then you can kind of go from there and find other things. But if you're more of a hands-on, don't want to be on the website, there is a great couple of books. They're out of date, and of course on their price values, but they're great for pictures. There's it's called the Elite Redline Guide, and that runs from 1968 to 1977. That is the Redline era cars, and that gives you variations, that gives you colors, and I mean, even really, it gives you a price point, because if you see a car is worth $200, then you know it's going to have some value. If you want to look at just the fact that there are variations, even, into the 90s, there's a book called Hot Wheels Variations, The Ultimate Guide. The last one was put out in 2010. And it's not a cheap book, but it's also, 3 inches thick. And that gives you pictures and colors and, again, values that are outdated. But how many, if that snowplow truck came in orange, pink, yellow, purple, green, it'll tell you that. So that's another really good book to look at.
Okay.
So yeah, there's another one, but that other one covers Matchbox and Johnny Lightning.
Okay. And that segues perfectly into the next question from Sally, who said, what about Matchbox cars? And, people do use those interchangeably, and they don't even realize they're calling a Hot Wheels a Matchbox, which that's me. But don't do
that to the collectors.
No, I understand. That is not my area of expertise, which is why you are talking to us.
No, we are very, very, very limited. We don't know much about Matchbox. He's a Hot Wheels guy through and through. I mean, I don't even know. I think we might have 5 Matchbox. And the only thing I can tell you about Matchbox is they predate Hot Wheels. They were made before Hot Wheels, and they came from the company Lesney. Lesney, and then became Matchbox. And now, guess what? Matchbox is also Mattel.
Oh, yeah. The cloud, the waters, even more.
But we still don't.
I know it's like you start selling on eBay and you get into things, and the more you research, the deeper you go into all the details that you were completely clueless about.
Yeah.
Like I had no idea selling this plate was going to take 2 hours of research, Yeah,
exactly. And I love my husband. I don't mind his collection, but there are points my mother actually will list the Hot Wheels cars before I do, because she has found she likes that little, she's learned enough that she can do the rabbit hole pretty quick on these cars.
Well, but I mean, it fits into that business model of keeping things small, easy to ship, and high profit. So that's very attractive to me. The older I get and the more I move, which is one reason I went that direction a couple of years ago, was I knew this wasn't going to be my last stop. I came here with a tentative plan of a 5-year living situation. And then everything changed, the economy changed, the housing market changed. And it's like, that's one of the driving factors of leaving Atlanta is the cost of living is just completely insane. And there's a difference between I can't afford that and I choose not to pay that.
Exactly.
And I choose not to pay that person because I think it's just greed. There's so much greed out there right now that I'm just not going to play that game. So anyway, but yes, small and easy to ship and doesn't take up much room and is portable.
Mhm.
And you could keep your whole Hot Wheels Matchbox inventory in one of those cases.
Ah,
And,
sorry.
well, if you're an average person, not like you, who is married to the king
Yeah.
of Hot Wheels, just, you know what I'm saying, though, it would be very easy to organize, not like
Yeah,
a
it is.
bin full of shoes. It's
Yeah.
easy.
And for the most part, you need 3 sizes of boxes, and that's it.
Uh-huh.
That's it. It's great. Yeah, and he's really in the scheme of it. He's actually a very small collector. There's a guy down in Gaithersburg that has a museum now that he is. Oh, and that's the other thing, that when you talk about the red lines, there were prototypes to get to where they are now. And so those prototypes have value. And there is a prototype of what's called a beach bomb, which is like a VW bus
Mm-hmm.
that has surfboards in it. And the
Mm-hmm.
one you will see on the market when you go to an auction or whatever has the surfboards coming out the side windows. Well, the prototype had the surfboards in the back. And so if you can find those, they're highly collectible, but there's only a few known. And matter of fact, the most valuable Hot Wheels known is one of those beach bombs, and it's $175,000.
You are kidding me.
Mm-mm. It's pink.
And tell me again the name of it. I'm going to look it up while we're talking.
It's called a beach bomb, and it's pink.
I got to hold it in my hand.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it right there. It's at the very top of it. Well, it's on a news site. Hot Wheels Beach Bomb, Volkswagen bus, and it's hot pink. Could be worth $150,000.
Yep.
And that was 2021.
Yeah,
May
we know the gentleman that owns it.
Oh, okay. So anyway,
Yeah.
I'm not fact checking. I'm just curious because I'm
Yeah,
sure
it really is.
you know way more than me. I just wanted to look at this thing and
Yeah, there's a red one. There's a couple of red ones that are in that price point too. So, but yeah, and those were prototypes. We actually, at the Hot Wheels conventions and nationals, they actually used to bring in the former red line designers. They bring in Hot Wheels designers every year so you can meet them and talk to them and learn what they're doing.
And I'm 100% sure there are people listening to this that are just falling out of their chair saying, or falling off the treadmill or whatever you're doing. I gave away all my kids' cars. Oh, all those hundreds of Hot Wheels and Matchbox cars. And I wonder what I gave away. So we can all commiserate together because we all are thinking that. And that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Is when you gave it away 10, 15, 20 years ago, you had no clue it was going to be worth anything. So we've all done it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't keep everything.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So there was a lot of discussion on that red line, and people were like, oh, just get them no matter what if they're red line. And I guess if they're cheap enough, you just get them and then research it at home and figure that out if they're the real vintage ones or if they're the fake new retro reboot ones.
Well, that's the thing, it's red lines are good. But again, we go to the thing of value is it's subjective because that $7 red line, my husband's not going to want it because it doesn't fit his collection. That $7 red line may not work for a lot of people, and if you got it free, great, it's free $7 to you.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to sell a $7 car even if it is a red line. And
not worth the time.
No, it's not worth the time. And that's the thing is some of these red lines are extremely cheap. The Camaro I was talking about has more value than almost 90% of the red lines, except for specific colors. There are very specific colors in the red line series that will also have a higher value.
It's so foreign to me.
Yeah.
Collectibles, like what makes that one collectible? Why is that one special?
Yeah.
And it's not always about how many were made.
Mm-mm.
There's other factors.
Yeah, condition, color. Mhm.
What car, what interior?
Yeah, because even there's different colors on the interiors in some of these cars.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Add another layer of confusion.
Yeah, you could have a white interior, you could have a black interior, you could have on the tires, you could have a 5-spoke, you could have a 4-spoke, it just and the funny thing is that the story is that how that goes is like if you get, let's say, 2 cars and they have wheels that are different on one car than the other, is because at Hot Wheels they would bring it down the line, and if they would run out, they would just grab whatever they had available and shove it on the car.
Oh, that sounds like how they made Bakelite. There's a name for it when it's all swirled together. It's like they took everything they had left for the day and they just mixed it all together. Yeah. And instead of wasting the materials, it might be like end of day. I'm not sure. Yeah. It's just like that's how manufacturing worked back in the day. It's like we don't want to waste the materials, so we're just gonna keep going and use them up, and there'll be some that are not exactly the same.
Yeah. But yeah, with the red lines, yes. I mean, you're gonna want to look for the real red lines, yes. Because even if let's say they're what my husband and others call beaters, which means that they're dented and dinged and badly toned and the paint is chipped and the wheels are somebody is probably going to want that as a starter piece, or somebody is going to say, that wheel is better than the one I have on my car, so I can take it off and potentially put it on this other one and make mine look better. Mm-hmm. Or, but you got to know how you to do that, of course. So, yeah. So, I mean, okay. Yeah, the red lines are great, but.
Let's see what else. I think we have one more question, and then we're just going to do freestyle and eBay chat. The last question is from Brandon. He asked how to approach a bulk bag buy. Identifiers to know if it's worthwhile, such as metal versus plastic base, years, any year ranges beyond the early red lines that are valuable.
Okay, that goes back into, again, my husband said when he looks at a bulk bag, first he does look for metal bases. 2, he looks for the real rubber tires. 3, he will look for anything that doesn't say vintage. So, he will look for those 68, 69, 70, 71 dates on the bottom. But again, that can be, tricky. So yeah, he will look for that. He will also look for the speed machines. Do they say speed machines on the bottom?
No,
they don't. Okay. I couldn't remember. See, I can't keep track either. So he will look for those speed machines, because those speed machines, that 1 year speed machines, were highly valuable. And then he just looks general for overall condition. And if it's something he wants, in this case, it's usually something he wants. And I had to ask him, as a reseller though, what are we looking for? And again, he goes back to, metal bases, real rubber tires, the red line wheels that don't say vintage. And that's the easiest, but it's no guarantee. Even if you have, even like me, even if you have very limited knowledge, if you can learn a couple of the series, it will help you.
Okay.
Like the speed machines, which only came out in 2010. They have value, amazingly enough. Again, they're from 2010. Or learning the 95s, because, somebody may not have realized that they had that Camaro and they tossed it in that bag. And even if it's not in the package, it's still highly valuable.
Okay.
So, maybe learn a little bit about like the 1995 or the treasure hunts, because a lot of times the treasure hunts are going to have a higher value.
Okay.
Those, look for that little flame if you can.
Now, how many cars does Paul have in his collection? Or is he afraid to count?
I'm probably afraid to count.
He wants bragging rights, so he's probably not afraid to count.
Well, and he's not even that big. That's the thing. He's not a big collector in comparison. He's come to where he has shrunk his collection down to usually he only wants the red lines. That's his part of his collection, except for those 95s where he was trying to complete. and then the few that I like, which I'm not normally a collector of cars, but I love the old Duesenbergs, the Rolls Royces, those kind of cars, the old 40s, 30s, and 40s looking cars.
Okay.
But I think at last knowledgeable count, I think
He just left the building. That's when he walked out when we asked, how many do you have? Nope, not going there.
We just moved. He had the attic above our garage, and then I think that fluctuation in temperature. And that's the other thing. I should have brought this up. Look at the cards, because the cards are really important to collectors. The backs of the blister, they call the blister backs, the card backs. Look at the cards, because when you describe this on eBay, you are going to have to put that there's a crease on this side, that the blister is loose, the glue is loose from the card back, that there's a crease back here, that it's, that it's torn, that it's something. So make sure you describe that card back in detail for a collector on.
Or show a great picture of it.
Yes. And we 12 of them.
They'll probably ask, you know, if it's that important, like Barbie collectors that want them in the boxes, if there's any damage or defect, they want to know. It doesn't mean they won't buy it. It just means they want to know.
Yeah. I used to be a Barbie collector, so.
Gosh, I think I'm the only person that wasn't.
I didn't have a big collection, and I even knew the boxes made them more valuable. But when we moved, when I was 22, I threw out my boxes.
Oh, no. Well, I was kind of into Barbie growing up. I had a little sister, have a little sister 4 years younger, and she just terrorized all my toys. Like, she cut the Barbie's hair off, or she would, she would just get into stuff and mess with it. And she was the youngest, so nobody ever corrected her.
Yeah.
So, I didn't become very attached to anything because it was probably going to be ruined really soon.
Yeah. When you asked about his collection, I think he's at about 1,200.
Oh, that's probably all fits in the shoebox.
It is covering 4 walls in a small room right now.
Okay, well, yeah.
It's a small collection in comparison to a lot of people. He has collector friends that.
Does he know, or do you know, like, what is the average age of a Hot Wheels collector?
It's
baby boomer, or just all over the place.
It's all over the place, because when we go to the nationals, you have everybody from 7-year-olds to their fathers that are 25 30 years old, bringing their kids to start collections.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got you've got the guy that runs the Indianapolis club, who is 71, and he's still running the club, and he's still buying cars, and the guy
here's the thing is, you go to estate sales to get these cars. So at some point, that collector is going to be no more. What's going to happen to his collection? If nobody in the family values it the way the collector did, then it just goes into the waste stream, as they call it, and it's up for grabs. So it's just this whole cycle of, buying, collecting, and then purging. And it just keeps going around and around. So I would just love to know, the life of that Hot Wheels car. Like, how many owners has it? Where does it live? Everything just gets circulated.
We actually have ours set up that if something happens, his is actually willed to somebody.
That's good.
Because we know that it'll go to somebody that wants the specific cars. So
right. Yeah, that's the thing, is a lot of times the collector, there's nobody in the family that values that or is interested, I guess I should say. It's just, and down here in Georgia, it's Coca-Cola.
I know.
All these estate sales and garage sales and all this Coca-Cola stuff, and very little of it is worth anything. Everybody thinks that, bottle from, 1980 when such and such sports team won the title, and it has a dedicated Coca-Cola bottle, that those things just really aren't worth much.
No.
and everybody saved all this stuff. People here have Coca-Cola rooms.
Oh yeah, that's the Hot Wheels people around. Trust me,
Yeah.
that's the Hot Wheels people. I mean, these guys travel from one side of the country to the other to buy entire collections.
Mm-hmm.
When the designer, one of the very first Hot Wheels designers, Larry Wood, when he left Mattel, he traveled around and did all these conventions and stuff. He finally, a couple years back, sold his original collection because of being a designer for this stuff, and they were buying for it. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars changed hands for that collection.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's hard to fathom having little toys that just are worth that much money.
That's what I said too when I got, what?
Well, I mean, you have a different situation where you're working as a team in the business. It's not just collecting every single one you find. It's you have very specific criteria. And I think that's what differentiates a more casual collector from a serious collector.
Yeah.
Your criteria of what you're seeking, what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay. Well, we've been through all the questions and all my questions. And so a few minutes of eBay chit chat. So what is on the schedule for today in your eBay world?
I actually have to ship a couple of items, nothing major because we have such weird things. So I got to ship that, and then I do need to get a couple of that car that came back on. So that VW Bug, that one that we did in exchange.
Well, I'm guessing when something sells for $100 or more, you definitely bubble wrap it and put it in a box. It's not just thrown in an envelope.
You will find that on they make protectors for Hot Wheels.
Display cases, sort of.
Yeah, they call them protectos. Then some of them are called. This one's called the car case, the one I have in my hand, because it's a little thicker. That they make protectos. And they make them for the standard blue card back Hot Wheels. They make them for the larger size Hot Wheels. They make them for, just if it's a loose car. So if it's an expensive car, we automatically put it in one of these protective cases. And then the protective case then gets bubble wrapped. If it's one of the really expensive cars, I will protect the edges, even though it has the plastic case on it. I will protect the edges. Then it goes into one of the Hot Wheels boxes if we have the standard Hot Wheels box. Because my husband orders he belongs to a club that they order special cars. And so we will just reuse those boxes because they fit in them.
So there is sort of a protocol for shipping these collectibles because every part of the container matters. You don't want anything to get squished or bent or nicked.
Yeah, you don't want, because again, the card is important to these collectors. If it's creased, it devalues it. If the blister is damaged, it devalues it. If it's anything. If it's creased, if it's pinched, if it's dirty, it's like any, I say it's almost like any collectible. But the problem with this is that because of it being a cardboard back, it's more likely to get damaged. So when it's if it's just one of the generic cheaper, like under $10 cars, it doesn't usually get the Protecto unless it came with it when we got it at our auction. We will just wrap it really well with bubble wrap, and then that'll go in the box. But the expensive cars always get the protective cases because the collectors are going to pull this out and it's going to go somewhere on their shelf. It's going to go somewhere on their wall, just as it is in that protective case.
Okay, good to know. Wow.
Yeah, it's I think it's just like almost any, good hobby. It's like if you collect dishes, if it's chipped, it devalues it. But yeah, it's the same thing. And the thing is heat and cold will affect this because it's going to warp the cardboard. And so you got to, those are things you have to disclose as well.
Wow, a lot to know. But that just goes to show another opportunity, just how much there is always to learn about selling stuff on eBay. People have said, "Oh, you're moving. Are you going to quit eBay?" No, I'm just going to do it in a different place. Are you kidding me? There's so much I don't know. And it's just,
You have new stock.
I mean, the world is your oyster, you know?
Yeah.
And I am interested in sourcing my inventory a little bit differently in a different size city, because, you know, Atlanta's so overwhelming to get anywhere and do anything.
And we're small town.
And, you know, prices at garage sales, people are, you know, jacking those up. And I got discouraged doing that because I kept running into dead ends. Like, this is not a profitable way for me to do it. So maybe in a smaller city, those things will be more accessible and not as much of a hassle or as overwhelming as it is here. So yeah, I'm not quitting any of this. I'm going to have a fresh start and maybe do some things differently. But I think I will always do eBay until I physically or mentally cannot, you know?
No, I get it. That's the way I feel too, because you can take it wherever you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you never know what you're going to find, because like you said, you know, you're in a different area. We live in the country, but we're still close to pretty much everything. And we do really well at country estate auctions. So because a lot of times, even though auctioneers or the state companies can only know so much too. And a lot of times they won't value, you know, they might value this toy, whereas they may not value a Hot Wheels car as much.
Well, and there's the urgent nature of moving, or if someone has died and they're trying to settle their estate, nobody wants to do that.
Yeah.
That is something that is kind of assigned to someone. And, you know, they just want it over with as fast as possible. And it's kind of a trade-off between how much money can we make and let's get this done so we can get back to our life. And, you know, moving too, it's like, you got to be out of there the day that moving truck comes. You better be ready. So, you know, people don't want to drag all that stuff back into their house and figure out what they're going to do with it. They want it gone.
Yep.
So it all depends on the situation. And I keep seeing things here. I'm still in Atlanta on this recording, but it's just, you know, these people that have garage sales every weekend, and they buy stuff to resell it, and they just open their door every weekend, their garage door, but their prices are usually way high. And because they're doing it to make money. They're not doing it to get rid of stuff.
Right.
So I avoid that. If I keep seeing this, you know, over and over, it's like, yeah, they're not going to have any bargains.
Well, actually, I think Casey posted one on your Money Making Monday yesterday about a remote control that he said it's one of those perpetual yard sales. And he said he goes knowing they're going to be high. Right. I didn't pick this up. So sometimes there still might be.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's just kind of figuring out, oh, I've never seen this one before. And it's, you know, moving sale, and they're got pictures, and they have a lot of stuff that's not Coca-Cola. I did go to an estate sale of a Coca-Cola collector one time, and every single room, I mean, was full of it. And the entire back porch, which was a long, you know, southern back porch, was Christmas Coca-Cola.
Oh, wow.
Not just Christmas, but Christmas Coca-Cola. So it's just, I don't want to look at that.
Well, what are they going to have up there for you in South Carolina?
Probably Clemson stuff. I don't know yet. I know definitely Clemson stuff. And I did come across one that was South Carolina Gamecocks, and it was so much of that stuff. So I don't know. It's kind of fun just to land there and see what I discover. You know, and I'm sure that people living in that area are going to be listening to this, and they're going to I'm open to comments on Facebook, YouTube, whatever, hey, go to this thrift store. Hey, this is good. Hey, this church has a sale every year. Maybe some other folks that live there that sell will be open enough to share that information, because I can't be everywhere at the same time. So, people have asked me that for years. Hey, I'm coming through Atlanta. Where are the good thrift stores? And I tell them, I can't be everywhere at the same time. So anyway, so I see the natives are getting restless there, and we've been going about an hour, so we will wrap it up. And everybody listening, you can find Tina on the Facebook group, but be courteous with your questions. But you are great. Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out and suggesting this, because it was very informative for me.
Yeah, we have no problem if I don't know the answer. I always ask Paul, and he, he'll let me know. And he doesn't claim to know everything either. So, and we'll just get back to you.
Okay, great. Well, it's good to connect with you again, and have a great day on eBay.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Wow, who knew there was so much information about such tiny cars? Thanks for sharing your knowledge, Tina and Paul, who really didn't want to be on the podcast, but since he was lurking in the background, he gets credit for being there. Okay, on to today's trivia question, and it is a food one. What was the inspiration for M&M candies? Here are 5 seconds to think about it. Okay, M&Ms were first introduced commercially in 1941 by Forrest Mars Sr. Forrest got the idea for the candy after observing soldiers eating chocolate pellets with a hard shell during the Spanish Civil War. The candy was made with a hard shell so that soldiers could carry the chocolate during warm weather. The hard shell would make it much harder for the chocolate to melt. M&Ms were quickly adopted by the United States Armed Forces during World War II. The chocolates were initially designed to allow easy transport and consumption for the soldiers in the war. During the war, M&Ms were exclusively sold to the military. Now, what does the M in M&Ms stand for? When the company was founded, it was M&M Limited. The 2 M's represent the names of Forrest E. Mars Sr., the founder of Newark Company, and Bruce Murray, son of Hershey Chocolate's president, William F.R. Murray, who had a 20% share in the product. So now you can impress your friends with the story of how M&Ms came to be. Thank you so much for making this podcast part of your weekly routine, and make sure to tune in next week for a chat with Genevieve in Maine, who sells all kinds of interesting items. And during our conversation, she proclaimed, "Wow, I can sell stuff in my sleep." Okay, that's a wrap for episode number 81. Make it a great week on eBay, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.